Without cuts, Idaho's childcare program is expected to go nearly $16 million over budget by the end of the fiscal year. Those on the left will tell you that this is because of the rising costs of childcare services in Idaho, but this is only part of the story. Not only are perverse incentives driving up the cost of childcare, but bureaucrats overpromised by covering people with higher incomes and more expensive childcare providers while reducing beneficiaries' co-payments. As conservatives rightly respond with cuts to the program, more durable solutions require covering gaps in accountability in rogue agencies and reconsidering childcare entitlements altogether. On this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays, we dive into how we got here and how legislators should respond in January. So how did the department get to a place where the childcare program was so far over budget? The new director of the IDHW sums it up best, noting, "The combination of increased local market rates, paying a higher percentile of local market rates, reduced co-payments for families, and increased eligibility has created a forecast budget deficit. This year, the department was due to reset their payouts to the market price of childcare in Idaho. However, these prices climbed by more than 25% since the last time this was done 3 years ago. In addition to the rising costs of childcare, the program has become more generous in recent years. Federal rules require the program to set benefit value to the median market price for childcare services at a minimum. This means that rates for at least half of all childcare providers could be fully covered by the program. But the IDHW went beyond this minimum standard, covering up to the 75th and 85th percentile of children and infants respectively. This nears the federal maximum and means the program covered all but only the most expensive programs. The IDHW also changed the program to allow participants to make more and contribute less. Participants had some accountability with copays for services, but the department slashed those already small rates in half. The program also used to have a household income limit of 130% of the federal poverty line, but the department recently raised it to 175%. This means you could make about $10,000 more than the median salary in Idaho and still qualify. Naturally, these changes also corresponded with large increases in enrollment. In response, Director Adams is making cuts to the program by pausing new enrollment, reducing income eligibility, and covering a more reasonable share of the market. Adams is right to make these changes, refusing to rely on the legislators and, by extension, the taxpayer to foot the bill for bureaucrats' broken promises. Poor program design and an unaccountable bureaucracy likely created the problem. Yes, it is true that childcare costs are rising, but there are perverse incentives to raise costs under the current program's design. The federal government requires the IDHW to review market prices every 3 years, but when providers know benefit payouts are based on surveys of their prices, then they are incentivized to raise prices to garner more funds, regardless of the real costs. There also needs to be more legislative accountability in the program. Cutting co-payments and changing the distribution of program coverage was all done through state plans, which are agreements made directly between the federal government and the state agency. State plans circumvent the legislature. They are never reviewed by lawmakers and do not go through the rulemaking process. This practice is not necessarily illegal, but operates within the gray areas created by vague rules and statutes. Where there is legislative review, there is no accountability for agencies' cost estimates. The IDHW incorrectly stated their budget could accommodate the expanded income eligibility requirements of the childcare program. The Senate ultimately approved the rule on this false premise. Legislators must be intent on reining in the bureaucracy in 2025. Lawmakers should consider policies that require legislative approval for any program change that impacts eligibility, benefit amounts, and program spending. This would help close the state plan loophole and end direct deals between agencies in Washington, D.C. Also, the agency should not be the only one providing a cost analysis of program changes. Independent analysis should come from the Division of Financial Management and the Legislative Budget Committee, JFAC. As the final note, the legislature should also consider alternatives to expanding the welfare state to manage the growing cost of childcare. Relaxing regulations is key. Alex Adams is already on the right track in this vein by increasing the cap on the staff-to-child ratio at childcare facilities statewide. This not only can be done without compromising safety, but also can substantially increase options available to parents. In sum, the childcare program's $16 million budget deficit is not a simple matter of childcare becoming more expensive. It is the combined effect of a rogue bureaucracy expanding entitlement programs beyond the capacity of their appropriation, then asking for more funds later. The effect of this increases costs, reduces accountability, and encourages dependency. Director Adams is right to make cuts instead of asking for more. The Idaho families who would foot the bill are grateful. Thank you for supporting the Idaho Freedom Foundation's message of liberty. Please like and subscribe to spread the word. For more episodes of Fiscal Fridays or other great content from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, please visit idahofreedom.org.